And greetings once again, everyone, and welcome to yet another, likely highly anticipated episode of Battle of the Heroes and Villains. Welcome to the show edition. And what a villain we have got for you today, because we are taking a look at Simula Malum herself, the primary antagonist for the first two seasons of Welcome to the Show. And as you can see here, 86.67% of voters gave her an A, 13.33% of voters gave her an F, and no one gave her anything lower. Which, when you add it all up and consider A a score of 5 and F a score of 1, gives her a final total of 4.86, which currently puts her in 4th place, ahead of Ivan. And for what she got to earn her such a prestigious ranking, well, let's take a look at your comments. Starting off, we have a comment from Behemoth. Simula. As a person, I would rank her as an F times infinity. She poisoned and nearly killed the Dwarven King, and as Alicia said, made them wanted fugitives until the Bala incident near Gatlistown. Her plans could have left the heirs to the Gold and Red Dragon Kingdoms in a fused mess. Her corrupting of character, censored, would have made him and Amber trying to punch the snot out of each other, maybe even getting one to rip the other's head off or fill it with arrows. Her plans had the unexpected consequence of a god's death via primeval pact violation. She has a chunk of Directing's population as fuel for a spell that rent the barriers between the material plane and the abyssal asunder, and allowed the demons there to pour out and nearly kneecap Directian. Simula teleported her unborn child out of her room because Hana wasn't useful to her anymore, and to top it off, her shtick gave Ravus the pieces of knowledge he needed to enact his plans to conquer the multiverse. Ravus could have figured out about the ways one can kill a god or outright take his or her place thanks to Carver's avatar sooner or later, but by that point I think the various city-states would have had better diplomatic relations, and thus a civil war would have been harder to pull off. But thanks to her demon war, everyone was weaker, and Ravus got the info in the right time to deal critical damage to the politics of Alatastica. Her aiding the party in Season 3 and her self-sacrifice play, even if it prevented things from devolving to Warhammer 40k Pathfinder Edition, they don't make up for all the pain her plan and the aftermath of said plan caused. I hated her gut throughout the series, but since I think it was one of the points Josh and Luna Corva wanted to work, then it fucking works! As a character, she gets an A from me. And this is probably going to be a recurring trend, as Simula is one of the poster children of the phrase love to hate. Still, let's see what others have to say about her. Coming up next, we have a comment from Darkwind. I'll give her an A. One of the 3 most tricky characters in the series, a chess master among chess masters. Her character starts out as seductive and manipulative, definitely evil, the love-to-hate sort. Later on though, after her defeat, it was interesting watching her shell finally crack, and the fact that ultimately she was able to give her soul for the sake of others, showed how even a devil like her could change. Well, I'm not entirely sure it was a change, but it was the beginnings of change. It was not, I have become a good person, it was, I'm willing to try and be better. And, in its own way, that's just as significant. Up next, we have a comment from Aramal the Fiery Secretary. I give Simi an A. One word. Teleportation. After that, we have a comment from Noid Brightclaw. Simula. Simi. Where should I even begin? She is an amazing villain. She did so much right. She made her presence known. She let us all know how big of a threat to her influence and how much control over the whole continent of both Directian and Sabaton. There were very few places the party could go without Simula knowing their actions. Hell, her whole plan to infiltrate the party was fantastic. Even up until she was put into the diamond, she didn't lose her ways of evil. The fact that she sacrificed her own child showed how far she was willing to go just for her amusement. And then after she broke out of the diamond, she expertly fooled us all and even herself to an extent that she was still the same. Up until the very last fight with Azias, she kept up her facade, and then she showed us just how much she cared. A very easy A+. And well, that answers my question of whether or not Noid had seen the last 2 seasons. Up next, we have a comment from Zanril the Drow. Simula gets an A because she's actively malicious and hateful just for fun. She wants everyone to hate her because she just doesn't care. She knows that it doesn't matter whether she's good or bad because she knows that her soul is doomed to hell. She knows where she's going after she dies, and so she may as well play the part so she feels like she earns her way there instead of just there by default. Even when she starts to become relatable, she actively finds a way to get everyone to hate her. She's too proud to admit when she wants to do good. She's basically the distorted mirror of Jaminia. Even when she's doing good, she has to do it in a way that makes everyone hate her. And you know, all of that was intentional when at the end, you realize that she actually was purified in that diamond, because her attitude never changed. Everyone's reaction was basically, you were reformed this whole time? Even when she cares, she doesn't care. And all of that is why she's such a great character. Though I should clarify on something, and this is actually a very interesting read on the motives of Simula, even though it is not motives that I particularly subscribe to. I more subscribe to the motives that she gave in her speech at the end of Season 2. That she simply doesn't care about anyone or anything. And honestly, she feels all mundane concerns are just wasting her time. That being said, however, it is still a very interesting read that perhaps her knowledge of where her soul would end up could have contributed to that, assuming she knew about this fact, which I am not entirely sure she did, but not 100% sure that she didn't either. That being said, though, a clarification I do have to make is that the diamond does not reform a person in the sense of changing their alignment. If it did, it would have the same kind of unfortunate implications as the Reformation spell in MLP. Less reforming a person and more just straight up brainwashing or even lobotomizing them, which is creepy more than good. What it did do instead was act as a giant therapy session, and it had the ability to cure or remove outside complications or even illnesses that were interfering with a person's ability to, well, act in a compassionate way. In other words, the Reformation did not turn Simula good. In fact, up until the final moment of her choosing to side with a party against her grandfather, she was not a good person. She was still fully chaotic evil. But the diamond gave her the ability to care. It turned her from a complete sociopath with no ability to feel concern for anyone in the world, barely even herself, to someone who is capable of remorse. Up next, we have a comment from Void Astral Birth. Simula. A name that inspires so many emotions. Fear, adrenaline, pain, anxiety. I could continue for hours. If you look up the dictionary definition of A-tier villain, Simula would have ripped out her pitch from there and superglued it next to S-tier villain. She has done absolutely diabolical things that welcome the show, including but not limited to murder and manipulation. She did nothing but toy with the main party at every given chance. Above all, her little stunt in directing that caused the ultimate demon war included a truly inspired moment of evil that had everyone's jaws and tears, including mine, landing on the floor, sacrificing the baby Hana to Bartol straight from her womb. If that wasn't the most vile, cruel, or villainous thing ever conceived by the mortal mind, I don't know what is. And she did all of that out of boredom. Wow. And yet, in the end, she sacrificed herself to help her sister Jaminia and the party obliterate the ultimate evil of Welcome to the Show, her grandfather Asmodeus. and the redemption felt earned. Simula Malum was a very twisted yet cunning character, and I loved every moment she stuck around. I would give Simula an S if it were possible, but since it isn't, I rank her with an A. And what is really fascinating about this and about her redemption, while I was pushing for a redemption to happen, I did not think it was going to work. And I kept telling Josh this over and over again. Dude, it's going to be too abrupt. You've given this no setup. It's going to be out of nowhere. They're not going to buy it. They're going to hate it. There is no way on God's green earth you can just have a complete monster like Simula redeem herself in the last session of the story and people to go along with it. They're going to be calling bullshit. It could ruin this entire character arc. Don't do this. Josh, confident in himself, proceeded along despite what I had said, and I ended up being the one to eat my words when he did it exactly as he said he would, and it worked. It worked like a charm, and I don't know how the fuck he pulled it off, but the dude has talent. Never fucking underestimate Josh, by God, Scorcher. Anyway, my gushing aside, we now have a comment from Soundwave. Greeting Princess Simula Malum. Oh boy. Before a certain drow came into the picture, she was my favourite villain. She was tactful, cunning, manipulative, and was always one step ahead of the party. Throughout seasons 1 and 2, not going to lie, she scared me. Her most frightening moment? The baby scene in the season 2 finale. Aside from her fearful moments in seasons 1 and 2, she had some use my skills for good moments. Assisting and tricking Lolth, assisting the party with going to barter and tricking her own grandfather Asmodeus himself. But her best moment is her sacrifice in season 4. TLDR, Simula's a scary motherfucker with a secret heart of platinum. Final ranking A. I mean, I'm not sure about platinum. I mean, it's a heart of bronze? Tin? Wood, because it was a heart of coal before, and then it was healed to at least have some life, and it's a heart of wood. I give her a heart of wood. Up next, we have a comment from Ace of Flames. Simula, my second favourite character. I still remember the first time I watched Welcome to the Show and how terrifying Simula's first scene was. The perfect music choice, the way she almost immediately took control of the entire situation, and may I remind that said situation involved a dragon. I was captivated by her character since that very first appearance, and she did not disappoint. I think Simula is a good example of how to play an interesting, chaotic, evil character. In a way, it's almost like she wants to be a dungeon master. Her motivation basically is just for the evils, but the way Josh tells the story somehow makes you feel kind of bad for her. She's a complete monster pre-Diamond, but he somehow managed to make her sympathetic-ish. She's also much like her grandfather in that she is an absolute snake. She manipulated almost everyone in Alatastica perfectly, and in the end, she actually kind of won. She got the show that she wanted. Her fetus tracking device plan is still one of the most brilliant villain plays I've ever seen in anything, and I love how seamlessly it kickstarted Hana's whole character in Arcos Redemption. She is an S-tier villain and one of my favourite of all time. My only complaint is that her story took a while to figure out where it wanted to go after season 2, and while her redemption was a pretty good scene, I felt like it could have been a lot better if we got to spend more time with Simula and see her change more firsthand. But honestly, her performance in seasons 1 and 2 alone are more than enough to earn her A tier in my eyes. The Malum twins are both just absolutely fantastic characters. And they're hot. And yes, I'm leaving that in, you're not getting away with that. Also, the scene that introduced Simula, the one that you praised so much, was actually a scene that Josh took inspiration from in Sherlock, particularly Moriarty's introduction, the pool scene. Moriarty being a strong inspiration for Simula. And if you want to take a look at why that scene was so good and why it makes for such great inspiration to our lovely Dungeon Master, I have a video on my own channel that goes over what made the scene work. Plug, plug, shameless plug, plug. And also, if I may continue the shameless self-aggrandizing train and indulge in a little bit of pettiness. Ha! Josh, see? There is one person who agrees with me that Simula's redemption should have gotten more development, had more time spent on it. But no, you had this whole argument of, oh, well, they'll see it coming, it'll be too predictable, and what have I said before about predictability not being a bad thing? About some things are obvious because they are right? But no, you insisted that redemption had to come out of nowhere, otherwise people would see it coming. And we've got one person who agreed with me back then that it could have been better if it had a little bit more build-up. Yes, I know this is only one person, and they're saying it could have been better, and not that it would have been bad. They still obviously loved it, and so did nearly everyone, and you ultimately made me eat my words and prove me wrong, but shut up! Let me have this! And finally, we have a comment from Legendbringer. Total A for me for the Villainous. I have always loved the manipulative and cunning type of bad girl who has a hand on everything and makes it so you have to work for your win. I love how she always seemed to have a way to win. Even if she was losing, she was winning. However, I would lie that was the only reason why. I love how we see that there are reasons for why she was who she was and see more sides to her. I'd always wondered how you make a 3D villain in D&D, and thanks to this, plus Critical Role, I'm starting to figure out how it works. To be fair, I'm mostly curious what you thought the obstacles were to making a 3D villain in D&D, but again, excellent points and an excellent commentary on the character. It is also interesting because I had recently heard commentary and criticism, and honestly we could chalk this up to yet another case of Welcome to the Show being a campaign that on paper should not have worked for multiple reasons, but that the kind of villain who has everything going according to plan and knows what you're going to do before you do it, and everything she does is all worked out beforehand. Often it is believed that this kind of villain doesn't work, simply because it can stretch suspension of disbelief as to how said villain is able to predict and plan for all of these disparate elements. But what I feel makes Simula work in this instant is the fact that when you think about it, her Batman gambits, her everything falls into place, a lot of them are actually incredibly simple when you think about it. Take, for example, her plan to bring all the armies together. Aside from one element which we all know, the plan was really to just let people do what they naturally would have in the first place, and that was, hey, there's a threat, let's unite everyone to fight it. There was no complex pulling of strings, no, haha, I have almost clairvoyant knowledge of what you're going to do. She didn't need that. She simply looked at how people would logically respond. Or rather, she wanted people to bring an army against her. What was the logical way to get people to do that? Make a threat. Sure, you can make the argument, oh, but what if they didn't do that? Your entire plan would have fallen apart. But ultimately, the chances of them not acting that way, it would have been more ridiculous for her to have predicted the opposite reaction. For her to have predicted that, faced with a giant threat, the people of Altastic would have, I don't know, gone and banged their head against rocks or something. Everything else, everything that was harder to predict, that was more chaotic, she made sure to put herself in control of it, to make sure that these were elements that were not left in the hands of other people and not left to chance. Ultimately, her plan was simple and brilliant, and honestly, That's probably the best description of Simula Malum herself. Speaking of simple, next time we are going to be taking a look at another NPC of slightly lesser importance as we take a look at the vampire constable, Ezio. Thank you everyone, and I will see you all next time.